the suspense thing, how do you know? I mean, I guess is it the division order department's responsibility when you're going into a new state to really understand what the DO requirements are? Are you working with internal counsel on that as far as what you can suspend and what you can't? Is it pretty well established as far as rules? Is that something that, like from an educational standpoint, that the division order analyst is responsible for, knowing and understanding? Like how do you handle navigating the different state requirements and things like that?
It's up to the division order analyst, to the department to know what you're doing, understand the different reasons for suspense and how to cure that. Um, it's a huge part of what we do to stay, continue going to trainings and stay up to date with all the laws for the states that you're operating in. If you can't do your job properly.
Yeah.
So that falls within them. But, there's kind of the universal codes, if you will, no matter what state well, almost whatever state you're in, you've got to have a TIN on file, right? The IRS wants their money. They want to
Yeah.
be able to tie you. And if you don't have a TIN for an owner and you're paying them, the IRS is going to come after your company and
Yeah.
you're going to pay fees and you're going to be in trouble.
Yeah.
So,
So it's not just getting people paid, it's making sure you've got everything papered up and documented properly. Do y'all do
right.
that? Does the division order department do that annual reporting typically, or?
Yes, typically, everywhere that I've been, we've kind of outsourced that to
Okay.
different groups that have handled like Escheat and stuff
Yeah.
for us.
Yeah.
So they are the ones that mostly keep up with like, okay, this state, the dormancy period is this long and all of that. But we absolutely have to run the suspense reports to determine, okay, this owner who lives in this state has this much in suspense and we haven't had any kind of owner contact with them or they haven't cashed their checks in X number of time, they qualify for Escheat. So that does fall on the division order department, absolutely.
Okay. That was a good transition because I was going to ask you about a sheet.
Yeah.
So explain a sheet. Like, what is that?
So a sheet is unclaimed property. So it is money that has been sitting there in suspense that has not been paid for whatever the amount of time is for the last known address of the owner. It's not based on the location of the well. It's based on the location of the owner. So
Okay.
you escheat to the state that you last know that they lived in. And then whatever that state's dormancy period is, all the funds that fall within that time period get escheated to that state. Now, there is a period beforehand called the due diligence period where you're sending letters to those owners. You're looking for an updated address on,
You have to
Google or
show a
LexisNexis.
diligent,
Yeah, right.
reasonable effort.
You have
Okay.
to show proof that you tried to reach them and get them to make contact and update their information. If you don't within that time period, that money gets escheated to the state, and then it's up to the owner to work with the state to get their money back. I've had people that have reached out to us 2 days after we sent that money to the state, and it's like, I'm so
Sorry.
sorry, but yeah, you're gonna have to work with them.
Yeah.
I'll help you get whatever documents you need, but
Does the
you're gonna have
state
to work with
charge a
them.
fee for managing that? Or, I mean, I wonder how that
Honestly, I
works
don't
for the
know.
land. It's not your problem, right?
No, I don't know. I know my problem.
Not my money. So,
That's
okay, that makes sense. Yeah, I mean, we have that from a bonus consideration standpoint. I mean, from time to time, somebody just won't cash their check, and we have to sheet, but obviously not at the level that you have from a royalty owner standpoint,
yes.
which I would imagine that's where the big bulk of that comes from. It's maybe someone that doesn't have a mineral interest, but they're just a royalty interest owner. They may have got it from their great grandfather or something. They don't even know they have it.
Right. Yeah, that's a lot of what it is. Or some kind of heir that, didn't even know that they were listed on the affidavit of heirship or in the will or something like that. Or
Yeah.
a lot of times I've seen it where it's even like charitable organizations. Somebody left
Yeah.
all of their interest, different charitable organizations, and they had no clue. Especially like colleges, they have a
Yeah.
lot of different addresses for a lot of different buildings. So they may not have gotten that DO to the correct building and you know, they didn't even know they got this
It's just
interest.
sitting
So,
there. What would you say, like, and
yeah.
this is a pop quiz trick question.
Oh gosh.
I mean, and this certainly it applies to maybe just the assets that you work, but what percentage of royalty ownership in a DSU is actually in suspense? And what do you see outside of Louisiana, North Dakota, where you have a more, statutory requirement to really dig into it? I mean, is it 20%? Is it 10? Is it half? Like, say a year passed, when your division orders were sent out, where you have this time for people to clean stuff up. I mean, where does that land?
Mhm. I would say somewhere between like 10 to 20% of owners are going to be in suspense for some various reason.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Because to a certain extent, you probably have to have some sort of directive from a leadership side of things within the company to say, hey, we're going to really push to identify and find people and do our curative and get them in pay. But I imagine there's probably other leadership, opinions that are like, hey, not our problem. We're going to stay lean and
Yeah.
mean, and they can get you and they can get right, or they're going to be in suspense. Is that tend to?
That's pretty accurate. Yeah, it definitely depends on your leadership, and then it depends on your company resources, right? What can you afford? Can you afford the big LexisNexis, Westlaw, or are you sticking to Google because it's free?
Yeah.
It really just depends. And then how much manpower do you have? Do you have the manpower to do research like that, or can you not spare the hours?
Yeah.
So it definitely depends.
Yeah, that's the next good question. So, like, what resources are in the toolkit of division order analyst to help find people? You mentioned LexisNexis and things like that. What are the, like, if you need to have three tools, what would they be?
Oh gosh,
Or
I
maybe
would
just
say
one.
less.
I mean, like, what are the
Maybe just one.
typical,
Oh,
yeah, the typical tools that you use to help find people and do part of that part of the job?
the best one I've ever used is definitely LexisNexis.
Yeah.
I think it's been the most helpful. I've used some like Westlaw. We even used Ancestry
Hmm.
to find people. And LexisNexis has been the best one.
Yeah. And LexisNexis has tiers, right? As far as
Yes.
what you're licensed and allowed to do. Can you expand on
Yes.
that? Like, there's,
I don't know too much about the back end of it and the specifics, but I do know, yes, there are different tiers. And then, you can get licenses for various number of people. It's all about what your company wants to pay out and how much you need. Some companies can only afford to have one license. So you have one designated person that's doing the due
yeah.
diligence.
Yeah.
Some of them, they can have multiple and you're able to have several people work on
Yeah.
it.
If
So
you're cheap like Dudley Land, we pay for one license and we have a
one
person.
license, one Escheat specialist.
Yeah, we have to. What we have to do is we use Basecamp as our kind of one of our workflow tools, and all of our
Okay.
lease buyers are in that Basecamp, and we have one person who's the LexisNexis keeper, and they're just sending in requests. Hey, I need an address or a phone number. Help me try to find this. And that comes in, and they cycle that out, and it kind of works through that workflow because there's a cost associated with that.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Another thing that I learned that I did not know until we hired a landman who was also a private investigator. Like, there's a whole
Oh,
nother level of LexisNexis and different tools that are for like private investigator type people that get you a bunch of good stuff. And it's kind of creepy because I
oh
know they were
yeah.
stalking on me. Like, I'm like, what do they know about me? But
Oh yeah.
they've got a lot, man. It's impressive how much information is out there that you can get about people if you've got,
It's kind of scary.
yeah, if you can get the appropriate licenses and willing to pay and keep
Y-
up with your CEs and all that, I guess, for that side of the
Yeah,
business.
whenever I did the training with the LexisNexis representative, she told us, she said, "Go ahead and put yourself in there, and you'll learn to work it." And I was like, "There's marriage records. There's if you have a boating license, they've got it in there.
Yeah,
It's crazy the stuff that they have."
yeah, but it's important. I mean, and I guess
Mhm.
you do have an ethical responsibility as a division order analyst to, use those resources, I guess,
Right.
for your professional use, and don't dig too far, right? Is that
Right.
does the NADOA, do they have like standards of practice and ethical guidelines? Is there anything to that effect in that are part of the association? It's a big deal for landmen, right? Because we're negotiating
Yes.
agreements. Is there a component to that for division order analysts, or is it not as big of a emphasis?
Oh no, it's big. We absolutely have a code of ethics, and we have ethics committees that will follow up on anonymous tips that come in for various reasons. So yes, you are expected to follow a code, and just be a good human being, right,
Yeah.
and do the right thing.
So we always say that. Khalil hears me say it all the time. Poor thing. Don't step one. Don't be an asshole.
Yep. Yeah,
That'll keep you
that's
out of
right.
business. That'll keep you out of trouble.